Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello, and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today, and happy Memorial Day weekend. And for those of you that have children in school that are out now, good luck. Anyway, this show, another great episode. In the first hour, we're going to be speaking with David Feinstein about the ethics of energy healing practitioners. And in the second hour, with Von Broschler about the secrets of time travel. Should be very cool. Looking forward to learning some new stuff today. But don't forget, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by SoulHealer.com. That's my webpage where you can find out about all the products and services that I offer. But the webpage is loaded with articles and information that it could take you days to make it through the entire site. It's big. And do check it out. That's SoulHealer.com. And it's also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. And please do go check out the Just Energy Radio webpage. That's www.justenergyradio.com, where you can find out about all of the exciting guests we have coming up on the show, as well as sign up for our weekly newsletter to keep you informed of who's coming up in the upcoming weeks, because I just started booking the next quarter, and you thought I had good people before. It just keeps getting better. No, I don't want to say it keeps getting the same, because I get great people like David and Vaughn and just all the other good people that come on the show. But do check out the website, because we have over 5 years of archives on that webpage. So let me tell you a little bit about David and get him on the air. David Feinstein, Ph.D., is a clinical psychologist who has served on the faculties of Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, Antioch College, and the California School of Professional Psychology. Author of 8 books and more than 80 professional articles, he has been a pioneer in the area of energy psychology and energy medicine. His books have been translated into 15 languages and has won 9 national awards, including the U.S. Book News Best Psychology Mental Health Book in 2007 and an Indies Best Book Award for the Promise of Energy Psychology. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio the author of the book, Ethics Handbook for Energy Healing Practitioners. Let's say that again. Ethics Handbook for Energy Healing Practitioners, David Feinstein. Hi, Dave. How are you doing?
Very good, Rita. Thank you. Nice to be here.
To me, the topic of your book is just so relevant right now. I feel like people, they're finally getting that message, listen to what your calling is and do what feels right to you. And a lot of people are being drawn into the area of energy healing without, maybe a lot of background, the do's and don'ts of what you're supposed to do working in that field. And I think your book is very timely to give them some guidance in the more practical, legal, potential aspects of the field.
Yes, when we started our certification program 7 years ago in energy medicine, Donna Eden's approach, my wife, we expected about 40 people, 20 to 40 people, and 220 people signed up for this 2-year program, and we were in all kinds of overwhelm with this good news. So one of the things we realized was that there were no good models for teaching ethics, and so we had to invent one. And it was really quite a fun adventure for us. When people hear the word ethics, often what comes into their minds are, oh no, a bunch of do's and don'ts, a bunch of rules I have to follow. There's the ethics police are going to be looking over my shoulder. And what we really were able to teach our students was that ethics is an entirely different level of consciousness. It is a way of recognizing that when you set out to help other people, that there are all kinds of dilemmas involved in that. There are dilemmas having to do with who are you to think you can help this person, or what are your assumptions, or what are your motivations? Are you doing this for the money? Are you doing this because you have an idealistic streak? Are you doing this out of compassion? And the people's motivation, people's assumptions, their working models, all of those affect how well they are going to fare in the healing profession. So we help people to understand that ethics is not just a bunch of do's and don'ts. Ethics goes all the way back in history. There have been healers through and over the centuries, traditions have developed that show people how they can take the desire to help and translate it into the ability to help effectively. And so that is really what ethics is about, is beyond your skills in your profession, beyond knowing how to make an assessment and how to make an intervention. Ethics teaches you how to create an interpersonal environment that is going to really enhance the healing endeavor, and also ethics highlights the errors that people have made in the past. People, where well-meaning people have gotten into terrible trouble in doing their craft, and so ethics identifies those hazards, those traps. It helps you think through how to handle them before you are faced with them, so that when you are faced with ethical dilemmas, which anyone that has a healing career will be, that you're prepared, that you've thought through some of these things in advance and aren't experimenting with your clients on how to move through this. So we started a ethics program where what we did was we took the toughest cases we could think of, and we presented them to our groups. And our groups included medical doctors and nurses and chiropractic physicians and naturopaths and many people who were in the healing profession, but also it included people that energy medicine was their first experience studying healing, so they had no background at all in ethics. And what we found was that by presenting these tough cases and taking an hour to talk about a case and looking at it from all the different angles and doing role plays and doing mock ethics hearings and making it very alive, that a very rich curriculum developed for us, so that our students have a real sense of the ethical issues they're likely to face and how to think them through and how to handle them. And after several years, and the program was getting a lot of really wonderful feedback and publicity, we decided that we should really take the essence of what we learned and put it into a book. So that's what as you said, it's a mouthful. The Ethics Handbook for Energy Healing Practitioners is about. Is it takes 50 of the cases that we presented to our students, and it presents to the reader each of those 50 cases, and it talks about the principles behind each case, and then it thinks through with the reader how to handle this case.
The name of the book says, For the Energy Healing Practitioners. Are you talking about only people that do energy work, or are you talking about Susie the psychic, or somebody, the massage therapist, or the hypnotherapist, that, anyone, and I'm going to say in the healing arts? Would this book be Oh, go ahead.
It would. A lot of the ethical principles cut across all the fields. So your first consideration is the well-being of your client. That's true whether you're a medical doctor or a psychic healer. It's simply a basic fundamental fact. And so our ethics training covers all of the, or attempts to cover all of the kinds of ethical issues that any practitioner could get into. But the reason that it says for energy healing practitioners is that people who are working with the energy, such as intuitive healers, such as Reiki masters, such as energy medicine practitioners, naturopaths, touch for health, healing touch, therapeutic touch, energy psychology, EFT, TFT, TAT, all of the people that are particularly attuned to working with the body's energies, in addition to the universal kinds of issues, there are also very specific issues that you are likely to get into. For example, someone comes to you because they have a very serious medical condition and they are desperate, and they have heard that energy work can do miracles. And so in your first session, you are imbued with a certain kind of magic in their mind that will take care of this terrible diagnosis that they've been given. And how you play with that power is very important. You can play with that power in ways that will help the person, that will enhance their, quote, placebo effect, that will make it more likely that they will heal. But you can also stumble into some very serious traps. You can wind up giving a person the impression that you're able to do more than you can actually do, or that you've demonstrated that you can do, or that your field has research showing that you can do, so that you are really misrepresenting yourself with this particular client, and perhaps causing the client to lose valuable time in seeking more established treatments for a deteriorating condition. So you can see that in that simple scenario, the fact that you're an energy healer opens up another realm of assumptions in the client and expectations that can be used for the good, and also can cause a lot of problems for you and for the outcome of your work with the person.
And I so hear what you're saying. I think with a certain amount of clients, there is an educational process. They think, oh, well, I can go get some energy work done, and at the end of an hour, poof, I'm healed. And, and they come in with that expectation and not necessarily the reality of the work. And sometimes just giving them some education, it's like sometimes miracles happen. But
Absolutely.
I'm not guaranteeing you that, your leg's going to grow back by the time this hour's over.
Right, and part of sound ethical principles is what is called informed consent, that the client really knows what they are buying, that they know what your training is, that they know what the procedures that you use are, and what has been established in terms of the effectiveness of those procedures. So you have a number of ways you can do that. You can do. A lot of people just simply make an informed consent form. There's several model forms in the book, or they can work that out. They can. Some people have long telephone interviews before the first session to be sure that they understand what the client is looking for and that they're the right person to deliver it, and that the client understands what they're getting themselves into. And so that's one piece of it. And another thing that happens is that you do have this great success with the client. The person comes in, and who knows whether it's their expectations or your genius or the magic of your methods, but after 1 or 2 sessions, they are cured of their psoriasis. And you're happy, they're happy, and then 2 weeks later you get a call from one of their colleagues at their place of work who says, I have this skin condition that I've just not been able to get rid of, and I see what you did for Susie, so I want to schedule an appointment. And they come in, and you look at their skin condition, and it's much worse, and you have never seen a skin condition like that, and you're not a medical doctor, and you don't quite know what it means, and you don't know, is this what melanoma looks like? Is what is this? What do you do with that? This person is coming in again with great expectations, a lot of readiness to heal, and do you begin to work with them? Do you let them keep their exaggerated hopes? Do you tell them, you need to get right to for a medical determination of what this is? What you do there has important implications, and now we're talking about not only the ethical implications in terms of what is best for the client, you're also walking into legal ground if you do make an assessment, a diagnosis of what this condition is, or begin to treat a condition that you've not even, where you don't even have a proper medical diagnosis. So it's really important as we develop these abilities in ourselves to heal others, to also be standing on solid ground in terms of what we can do and what we can't do, how to language what we do. The way we communicate is very, very important, both legally and in terms of client welfare. So there are a lot of ways that newcomers to healing are not sophisticated, yet they can become sophisticated really very rapidly, because the field of healing has been paying attention for centuries to these issues and has kind of put them into a number of categories, like understanding and communicating your own competence, understanding your scope of practice, what you can do, what you can't do, what is not appropriate to do given your background and training. Informed consent, I've already mentioned. Confidentiality is another one that you would think that would be simple. You just a person comes in, whatever they say to you stays with you, and that's the end of the story. But what if you get a court order that this person is claiming disability, and the opposing attorney knows that they've been seeing you, and you're ordered to come in and tell exactly what you were told about the condition and how the treatment has gone? Are you bound by confidentiality to ignore that court order? You may get time in jail to think about that. Or how do you handle that court order? It's very, very delicate, and so there's lines where people that have gone before you have thought these things through. One that is always a very heated one in our ethics training is that you are seeing a woman for anxiety, and she's making some progress, but it's going slower than you thought. There's in energy medicine, for instance, which is the topic of our certification program, you can work with the triple war meridian, which governs anxiety. You can look at other meridians such as stomach that might be involved, and you can look at how the chakras may be holding the anxiety and holding the history that is anxiety provoking. And you can work energetically with all those without being a psychologist. You're not doing talk therapy. You're simply working with the body's energies. So a lot of our people do that. So you're working with this woman, and she's making some progress, but not as fast as you'd like. And but she likes you like her, and she refers her husband because he's been having some stomach problems. And so you begin to work with him, and he starts to respond really well. And in the third session, where he's feeling much better about his medical condition, he reveals to you, because he's come to really trust you, that he is having a secret affair that his wife doesn't know about. So all of a sudden, it just dawns on you that this is why the wife's anxiety is not responding better to the treatment, is that at some level she knows that this is going on. At some level she's picking it up, but it's not been discussed between the two of you. So what do you do about this? Do you continue to see her and simply disguise the fact that you have this information that is very central to her life? And then what occurs if she finds out? Then she feels totally betrayed. Or do you tell her? Then you have violated his confidentiality. And so so there's a variety of choices you have at that point, but the best choice is to not get into that situation. And the way you don't get into that situation is by your informed consent, where in your informed consent you talk about confidentiality. You establish in advance, if I am seeing two members of the same family, everything I'm told is strictly confidential, or everything I'm told is open. Different people will handle that differently. Some people handle it by refusing to see two members of the same family. So it's really very much a it's not like there are hard and fast rules for these situations. Each one is unique in itself, just as every person that you'll ever see in your practice is unique, but there are certain themes, and you need to find where you are comfortable with that theme, whether you're comfortable with seeing people and being willing to keep a confidence like that and deciding that in advance, or whether you're not willing to attempt to keep a confidence like that, so you go about with the information that this man knew beforehand, before he talked to you, that anything he told you was fair game to be shared with the wife. So that's another way to set it up, and either one is legitimate. And not seeing two members of the same family is more done in psychological work than the physical healing, but it can be done in either case. And what ethics training does is it helps you think through these kinds of things in advance, so that you have really, really good policies.
And the example you gave is such a challenging one, and I'll share this story with you and the listeners. So I was, in my practice, I had a husband and wife decide to come and get a reading from me. And so I took the husband first, and we're doing the session. He drops the bomb on me, I'm having an affair. And then I have to take the wife, boom, right after. And she's going, our relationship is falling apart, and, I can't really get him involved. And I'm like, and I didn't disclose anything because, just what you're saying. I mean, there was the confidentiality part to the whole thing, but it made it really challenging to make it through the session with her, just from the work part, because her question was directly related to what was going on in his life.
Absolutely, and your hands were tied at that moment.
Mhm. And I know I'm not the only one that has those situations. One of the things you were mentioning a little earlier when you were talking about the skin issue, about the one person coming in and having things really turn around very quickly, and then the friend coming in and, the issue being more serious or a different kind of problem. But, when you're talking about the scope of work, there's also the part about the client's ability to energetically participate in their own healing, which can be a world apart, one person to the next.
Absolutely. So that's part of the craft also, is getting people educated about their own ability to shift their energies and getting them motivated to use that ability, because there's such a tremendous difference in the outcomes when people are fully involved. It's energy medicine is certainly something that someone can just come to a practitioner. The practitioner does it to them, but how much more effective when it becomes an ongoing awareness of how every day they are making choices that impact their energies, and that they can increase their vitality and increase their health so much by simply using that awareness that even the foods we eat, aside from their nutritional value, aside from everything we learn about the chemistry of food, there's an energy to food, and people can energy test very quickly and easily to find out which foods are really better for their energy system and which foods aren't. And that, like any diet, that is totally individual. It totally depends on who you are and what your chemical makeup and your energetic makeup, and it also may change over time or even change from day to day. So having tools to make those kinds of determinations is just so rich for people.
When it comes to food, one of the things that I like to do is just to, feel into, well, what do I need today? What is for my highest good? Because one day I really might want a salad, and then another day I'm feeling like I need something more grounded, with more proteins or more carbohydrates to kind of pull me back in. So it's not about eating the same things either.
Absolutely, and it does change from day to day and even within the day. But that's great, Rita, that you're that tuned in to sensing those energies, and a lot of people are. I think that in terms of evolution, back in really primitive times, people had to rely on their sensitivity to energy to know whether this plant was nutritious and this one was poisonous, or to know when a predator had come into range. They could feel that in their energies, and interestingly, the ones that were good at that, or that knew how to heal their loved ones, the ones they depended upon for their survival, they're the ones that survived. They're our ancestors. So we have a great capacity to really do what you just said, of tuning into the energies in our world, but it doesn't get reinforced in our culture. Our culture, it's a fight with the academics to even acknowledge that chakra energies or meridian energies even exist. So that capacity that's in all of us goes dormant for the most part. What we're finding in our energy medicine trainings is that it can be reawakened, and it adds a wonderful dimension to people's lives when that comes alive.
Wouldn't some of the work you're doing in energy psychology be something that's kind of bridging that gap? The medical profession, I'll just throw this out there, their big thing, well, stress is one of the leading causes of disease, but they leave it as such a big, open, broad thing where my stress is going to be different from your stress, which is going to be different from this other person's stress. And isn't that kind of what energy psychology is looking at, is what the stress really is, and then based on that, doing something about it?
It's a very powerful development for, almost any disease you can name in any person. There is a strong emotional component. That is not to say that their emotions or emotional conflicts cause the disease. But once a person has an illness, there is a strong emotional reaction to that illness, and often there are emotional factors that make the person more vulnerable to illness. So what energy psychology is doing is working at the level of the emotions that are tied in with physical illness. It does a lot more. It also does a lot of work with stress-based disorders such as PTSD and anxiety disorders, but in the physical healing realm, it is also getting quite a reputation, as well as some initial research showing that that by bringing energy psychology into the hospital or into the clinic, that people heal faster. And part of it is exactly what you're saying, is that by reducing stress, and it lets healing happen faster. It also is preventive. By identifying emotional issues that are tied in with the illness and treating those, which it does very effectively, that the illness heals faster. So there's what happens actually is very interesting, is that in energy psychology you bring to mind something that you're wanting to change. Often it's a stress or a reaction to something in your life, to a trigger or a memory that is tied in with a current difficulty, and you tap on a set of acupuncture points. Some people hold the points, or some people will massage them, but tapping them is the most common method, and usually it's acupuncture points. Some people work with chakras, but tapping on acupuncture points actually has been shown to send signals to the amygdala, which is the part of the limbic system, the emotional part of the brain, that codes threat and stress. And the signals that are sent to the amygdala, and this comes out of fMRI, that's the imaging research that was done at Harvard Medical School, showing that certain acupuncture points, when stimulated, will reduce arousal in the amygdala. So that means that the person is calmed immediately. It's an instant effect. So what you're doing with energy psychology, supposing that you're working with the person's distress about their diagnosis, so by bringing that distress to mind while tapping on the acupuncture points, bringing the distress to mind increases arousal in the amygdala. Doing the tapping decreases arousal in the amygdala, so the brain's getting opposing messages. You keep doing the tapping for a little while, nothing bad happens right there, and so the amygdala calms down. So now this panic response to the diagnosis allows the person now to have their mental resources more available to addressing what they're going to do about the diagnosis, so that they're able to move forward without the anxiety and panic that was involved in the diagnosis getting in their way. And in the same manner, these different stresses around the illness, or when did these symptoms start? And it started. Funny you mentioned, it started when my son was killed. That's when this pain in my chest started, and that's now grown into serious hypertension. So you're able to tap on that, so that the distress about that memory actually begins to be healed. And very often we see physical illness turn around after that kind of treatment.
My little mental image associated with tapping is that there's kind of like a clot. There's like an energy clot. And when you tap it, it just kind of breaks it up and allows our energy to flow through that point better. I just love that little image, and it works for clients, and they get it. They don't need to know about the amygdala, too complicated. Mm-hmm. It's like, just, break it up.
Right. Yeah, well, I think that's probably a pretty accurate image, too, that once we're able to, or not what we're able to now, but once somebody funds doing some studies of these kinds of interventions using imagery, that we'll find that your image there is very accurate.
How accepted? I mean, you're heavy duty in the real medical side of the world. How much is energy psychology? I just am very curious about it because a lot of the work that I do really moves into, or the area that I personally shine in is identifying the beliefs and emotions that underlie people's illnesses. That's really what I feel I bring to the table in the whole big picture. Mm-hmm. I mean, and including other things, but that in particular. And so the whole concept of energy psychology as like becoming something. There's a word.
It focuses right in on that, on those beliefs, and it really, really gives people tools to change them. The medical profession has not welcomed it with open arms. It's been quite a journey the last 10 years that I've been one of many who has been attempting to get the American Psychological Association to even recognize that this is effective. In 1999, the APA, the American Psychological Association, which has 150,000 members, so it's a very large, influential organization, which has, I believe, 90,000 psychologist members, and then the rest are students and others that are in other professions like law or medicine who also want to be involved with psychology. So it's a giant organization. They sent a memo to all their continuing education providers that they would lose their providership status if they taught courses in thought field therapy, and that's been now applied to all of the tapping therapies, all the energy psychology approaches. So, which was an unprecedented act. That had never been done before, where something is singled out in that way. They have other ways of weeding out bad programs, but they actually sent this memo out, and that, despite increasing evidence that it works, that is still the status, is that when I go to a conference and do a class, the program says psychologists cannot get a continuing education program for attending this workshop. So that's and now there's some good reasons for it. The method looks so strange. I'm a clinical psychologist. There was nothing that happened in my training that resembled, tapping on the skin and humming and counting, and it's very strange looking. So that didn't help make it any easier. And then the second thing that really worked against it is the fact that it comes from another tradition, an unfamiliar tradition from it. Well, it's based in the tapping itself is based in Asian acupuncture, and so the explanatory models, the framework, the paradigm is totally unfamiliar. And then the third thing that happened was that people that were doing it were getting these amazing results, and they weren't quiet about it. So they were talking about the 5-minute phobia cure and things like that, while the and the field, psychologists are very savvy to how easily people can be fooled, but how much might be placebo effect, or as you said, expectation, or the charisma of the leader, that still gets good results, but has nothing to do with the method. So they say, okay, you're making all these claims, show us the research. And in 2002, when I stepped into all of this, there was no research. There wasn't one published peer-reviewed study that used a control group, which you kind of need for effective research, and so energy psychology came onto the scene, making a very bad impression, and that impression has lasted. It's not been really turned around for most of the fields. However, things are really beginning to change. In a few months, or maybe even sooner than that, there will be an article published in Review of General Psychology, which is an APA journal, a very prestigious APA journal, that does look at the evidence. And it shows that there are 51 peer-reviewed studies now that are studies or case reports that show that this works. There's not one in the literature that shows it doesn't work, and 39 of them have been published in the last 4 years. So it's really very new. Yeah. So it's really exciting, and some of the studies are just so impressive. Going into places like Kosovo and Rwanda, and working with people that were victims of the genocide and that are suffering with terrible PTSD. They've seen their loved ones killed in front of them. They've been raped. They've had terrible things happen to them. And every day their lives are filled with flashbacks, and every night they're filled with nightmares. They're really seriously psychologically wounded. And while some people fare better than others, a lot of people are 14 years later still suffering with really bad PTSD. And a team went in, a number of teams have gone in now and worked with different groups. One of them worked with orphans. These are teenagers who, when they were 3 or 4, saw their parents killed in front of them many times. And the one orphanage, which had nearly 400 kids in it, they took the 50 who were the most severe. All of them had PTSD based on reports of their caregivers, estimates of their caregivers, and they could only give them one session because of practical limitations. And they thought, well, this is all we can do, but maybe it'll make some difference and give people some relief. Well, it was amazing what it did. People, like more than, I think only 3 people, three of the 50 kids still had the same kinds of symptoms where they actually did some testing, and where they were, like 94% or 92% went from above the PTSD cutoff to below it after one session. I mean, that's amazing. You don't get results like that in conventional psychology. It's unheard of, and that's another reason why the field is having so much trouble accepting it. Is it's too good to be true, And so they correctly say, show us the research. Well, now the research is in. There's 3 independent studies by different investigators that have shown really good results, really strong results with PTSD after one session. Now, is one session ideal? No. I've talked to the investigators in all 3 studies, and they all say that they wish they would have had more sessions. They could have helped more, but for practical considerations, they just couldn't. These were all in far away, and the issue is getting the people there to, because it was in rural areas where it was hard for people to get to where the treatment was being offered, and but they all got similar results, and they didn't expect results like this. But when the studies are able to give 6 sessions or as many sessions as needed, the results are really quite strikingly positive. So all that is published and now is all being reviewed in this one article in Review of General Psychology, which is coming out in a little while. So I think that will begin to shift. Psychologists and other mental health professionals pay attention to the research results. That they know that they can trust that with a lot more confidence than the claims of the person that developed the technique.
Right.
So that's all very exciting.
Well, and, something like that might open the door to some of the other therapies that are being practiced, or the concept like, chakras and meridians are maybe, just maybe, are real things.
Right. It's interesting is that once it's recognized that it works, then the question is, how does it work? And that will be another very interesting debate for years to come, is, like you said, is it because of the signal sent to the amygdala, or is it because these little energy blocks get broken up? And I think it's both, frankly. But the energy block explanation doesn't fit within the paradigm. So what will happen, though, is that once people are embracing this and saying, I'm going to use this with my client, and then they see it works, then they really get curious, want to figure out why it works, and so they'll look at the brain explanations, what happens in the amygdala, and say, is that enough of an explanation? Is that an adequate enough explanation? Is more going on here? Because if it's reducing arousal in the amygdala, how come it works to help athletes perform better? They're not traumatized. Well, some are, but the traumatization is not why they're not doing peak performance. So what's going on? So maybe this is really activating the body's energy system in ways that we haven't understood before. So I think it'll be a very exciting time theoretically as this gets more accepted.
Great. We have about 10 minutes left, and I want to change topic, but not. Because we've been talking about energy psychology and then, the ethics part of energy healing. But what if you're the client and you're out looking for someone to do energy work on you, or to get a psychic reading, or, anything in the alternative health field, the healing arts? Are there any kind of red flags? And I'll share this with you. I had a woman email me, and she said, I've been looking to get him. This is this week, which is why I'm bringing it up. I've been looking to work with a medical intuitive, and I contacted someone else and asked her how accurate she was. And the woman got a little bit defensive, and so I don't want to work with her. And so I wrote back, and I'm like, that's a really loaded question. Because to say, I'm 95% accurate really comes from a place of ego. Well, I guess she heard where I was going with that, because I have an appointment with her. But, from somebody that's looking to work with someone that is coming from an ethical base, or, as close to an ethical base, what kinds of red flags would you see, coming from a practitioner?
Well, I think that it makes sense to approach any practitioner with skepticism, because the field is so unregulated, and there are so many people that are idealistic and wanting to do good that are advertising themselves very aggressively. So look at a person's claims and ask yourself, does this sound like hype? You kind of get a sense. If you're attracted to someone, I think that what your client did was exactly the right thing, which is contact them, ask the questions that are from your heart about the work, and pay a lot of attention to your instincts in your response to their answers. So is this someone that I immediately have a sense I can trust? And then the other way is to find out as much as you can about how other people have, what other people's experiences have been. More and more, you're having people in all professions get rated on, the internet and these different, Yelp type services. And while I think those need to be taken with a grain of salt, because a person's charisma and sort of used car salesman qualities can sometimes get them good ratings. That's a source of information that I pay some attention to. Also, who in your community has had experience with this person. So those are all ways. Rita, I'd like to, since I know that you work with a lot of medical intuitives and train them, I'll tell you another one of our cases. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Which is that a lot of our people, as they begin to work with the body's energies, become more and more intuitive without necessarily trying to. And so as that intuition opens, they sometimes begin getting information about their clients that comes in it's like they don't have any logical way they know this, but they just know it, and they'll check it out, and it's often right and useful. So the case that is another case that really got a lot of discussion going in our classes, is that as your own intuition is opening up, you're working with a woman whose husband is in the military, and they live on an army base, and she's there for some medical condition, and you're working with her, and she's responding fine, and she talks a little bit about her distress in her marriage, and she's not thinking of divorce. She's just trying to accept what is, and one of the things is that her husband's a little bit tougher on the kids than she'd like. He'll sometimes slap them or spank them in a measured way, but it fits within the norms of her culture and the military community, but she's not real comfortable with it. And so you just kind of are a sounding board, and you're not letting your own values get in the way of being a good sounding board. And then it's springtime, and you're having a session, and you get this image of her husband having just shot her and the kids. You see a strong image, clear as day, and you even see outside the window the trees are blossoming. And so you realize, oh my gosh, that's spring, and it's spring now, so this feels very imminent. And what do you do with that information? Do you share that information with her? If you don't share it, and it happens, have you neglected to use information you were given to actually possibly prevent an absolute tragedy? Or if you use it, if you share it with her, and she shares it with her husband, you may be in a very awkward position. So that's a case that maybe you and I could discuss a little bit, how what one does with that information. I'm sure you have some guidelines that you tell your students about how to how much faith to put in an image that passes in front of their eyes.
Thank God I've never had stuff like that come up for me.
Yeah. So what?
I mean, the work that I do with my students is just this is what's going on in the moment, and I preach a lot about we don't predict the future. The future is changeable, and so since this would be a future event, I'd be like, you need to just leave it alone, because something could happen that could change the timeline. Even if this was a true thing that could happen, there could be intervening things that would change the timeline, and this would never happen anyway, if that makes sense.
Right. Oh, but one of our students said, but maybe the intervening thing that was supposed to happen was I was supposed to warn her. So it's very tricky, but one of the things that's really important for our students to know, and for practitioners to know, is what you just said, which is that the future is not written in stone, and so this is not a known. Another thing that we teach them is that images that come to them may be about the client, but they may be more about them. They may be more about their fears. It may be that the practitioner really wanted to, had a very strong reaction to learning that the husband is beating the kids, and had to sit on that because they didn't feel like they could impose their values, and so that was just building up, and it just came out in this fantasy. Or so a second thing that we teach, besides that you really don't know the future isn't determined, is that any image that comes to you, you need to second guess it, that it may be about the client, it may be about you, it may be about some interaction, it may be more random, it may be like if a person is working with somebody and they suddenly see them transported in an ambulance, it may be that a siren was going by that was outside, that they didn't consciously recognize, but picked it up subconsciously, and that was what that was about, and that's all it was about.
And there's even another scenario, is that you picked up that somebody got into an accident or something happened, but you happen to be working with this client, and the image ended up getting that client's face over the energy of a completely separate situation.
Absolutely. So we teach people to be very skeptical about their own images, but also to use the information. So what she could do to use the information would be to really take this as kind of guidance and permission to ask more probing questions about how safe she feels in the marriage. And that's very different from imposing on her the information or what this image might have been, but it's still utilizing it in a way that's responsible, and that may in fact lead to prevention of a tragedy.
We have 3 minutes left. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the course that you and Donna offer and just any other stuff like that, because I'd like to give you a chance to talk it up.
Well, we are so proud of our certification program. It's a 2-year program that is taught. The first year is taught in more than 20 local communities. It's called the Foundations course. People can take just the first year. A lot of nurses, doctors, other medical people, after taking that first year, can begin to incorporate energy medicine into their practices. The second year, after the second year, people are able to be certified as practitioners. They're able to actually hang up a shingle with our blessing and be on our website. So that program is people are loving it. We're just so excited. It's done 4 times a year for 4 days. People come, so 16 days of actual residential training, so people can keep their day job. But then in between, they're practicing. They're getting Skype supervision or live supervision. And we've had 635 graduates so far, and they're doing wonderfully. So that you can learn more about that by going to our website. Donna's website is learnenergymedicine.com, and then look under training or classes and look under the certification program. Also, all of our shorter classes are listed up there. For energy psychology, the website is energypsyched, energy, PSYCHED.com. And to go directly to the ethics handbook that we've been talking about, we have energymedicineethics.com. Takes you right there. So there's a lot of, like your website, people could spend days and days just looking at all the information there. It's great to be able to share free information so effectively for people. So we're really happy to be able to make that available to people.
Wonderful. David, I know the music's going to come up here in a second. Thank you so much for coming on and just sharing so much, I feel valuable information for people that are working in the energy healing field and talking to us about that energy psychology, because I think that it's what kind of, it was like the little piece that was missing, I think. I don't know.
Rita, it's been a delight to talk to you. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too. And we'll have to have you back on. All right?
Thank you. Bye-bye. All
right. Bye-bye. That was David Feinstein. His book is Ethic Handbook for the Energy Healing Practitioners. His webpage is energypsych, PSYCHN.com, and we'll be back after these messages.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.